Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you, LACNIC, for allowing me to make this presentation today in this forum. The idea is to introduce you to the topic and the reality we are dealing with regarding denial of service attack in our region. So this is about myself. And what does Latin America represent in the internet? These are the numbers. So we speak about 41 countries and territories, 197 industry verticals, and 6,016 autonomous systems. This is very important for the internet today. This leads us to understand that all this infrastructure has its risks. There are some companies that are those that know more about us, and these are the insurance companies. When an insurance company tells you that you have a risk of having a car accident, we must pay attention. And when an insurance company tells you that you might run the risk of having certain diseases, you also have to listen to them. And there is something called in the world called Alliance, and every year they produce a report telling us which are the major reports for the industries and the countries. This is the company called Alliance, and this report shows that risk number 1 is that of cyber incidents. Number 2 and number 3 has business continuity. These are two things that are affected by denial of service attacks. And that is globally. But if we have a look at Brazil, we see that cyber incidents rank first. If we look at the case of Argentina, cyber incidents are top of the list as well. And if we look at the case of Colombia, cyber incidents also are top of the list, the same with Mexico. They rank third in Mexico, but the first one is business interruption. So we understand that the two risks, the most major risks that affect denial of service, are cyber incidents and business interruption. And if out of the 10 that affects 2, this means that this is very important for our business and for our lives. Now, what is denial of service? I think all of you are familiar with this, but in case you are not, it's like when you go to Rodicio and you put the green button and about 15 come there at the same time, and everyone wants to have the same thing. The same happens with these systems and with this infrastructure. We are attacked from many different places and at the same time, so this infrastructure fails. In addition to these risks worldwide, we understand that there are about 1 million devices connected to botnets. Normally, botnets are the main generators of denial of service traffic. Now, these botnets in 2024, from July through December, generated more than 1 million attacks. This is one attack every 15 seconds. This is just for Latin America. It's not globally. This is just for Latin America. So out of that those million attacks, 500,000 were addressed to service providers. And this is a very important fact because the majority of you who are here represent, work, or have a internet service provider. This means that one of the major risks that service providers face today in the internet is the denial of service attack. Now, looking into how this works, we see that many of the attacks come from certain countries that have already been identified. But we can also see which are the major victims of such attacks. In Latin America, the top 5 countries that suffer from attacks are Argentina, Brazil, Belize, Belize is a very small country, 400,000 inhabitants, and it is quite impressive to see that they are one of the countries that suffers from most attacks in the region. Then Chile and Peru. I'm going to speed up because I think we are a bit behind. What else can we see from this? What is the most expensive thing for an ISP? Or what should be taken care of as one of our valuable assets? Bandwidth, right? And what do DDoS attacks affect? This is bandwidth. This means that the denial of service attacks are not only a risk for the business continuity and for operations, but also financially. This also has an impact. Maybe we don't realize, but it does have this impact. We can see here that the denial of service attacks can consume up to 10 gigas, 100 gigas, and that is money. Now, the interesting thing is that these attacks have had different modalities. You're all aware of this. These are the 7 layers of the MOSI system, but most of the attacks are focused on some of these layers. First of all, the application layer. This is because the majority of attacks are targeted at web applications. And secondly, the network layer. Layer 3, layer 4, layer 7. This is because these are the layers where the attackers can generate requests, they can generate traffic, and this is more complex, covering from layer 3 through layer 7. Now, there's quite an interesting point. These are the attack vectors. What is an attack vector? This is a path followed by the attacker, or the formula that is followed in order to attack. So all this is applied to Latin America. These are the attack vectors that are being used today. TCP, DNS, SYNAC, Reset, ICMP. We were having a talk about SNP a while ago, ICMP. So this shows that the techniques and the attack modalities have evolved. Look at this. We now have multi-vector attacks. And at the end, you will see a couple of graphs that show an attack that we suffered live, and we had to fight against that. This was like a cyber war. But these were multi-vector attacks. So when the attackers realized that on layer 7, the protections were well configured and couldn't produce much harm, they scaled down until they reached the network layer. This was not the end customer who suffered, but the ISP. And not only the end user suffered, but all the customers around, all the clients around that. So which are the industries that are attacked most in Latin America? First of all, who feels identified with this? The ISPs. Look at the industries that are at the top. Then we have the cloud and mining and websites, religious organizations, and you might say the banks, but look at the banks where they are. This is the case I was referring to, which was a live attack. We saw live attacks taking place. Now look at the first graph where you have a square that shows application layer 286%. This means that the attack traffic increased 286% during the peaks. So if your networks are prepared to function at 60 or 40%, any network at this level just crashes. Look at the bottom graph. These are attack volumes to the network layer. 517%, 5 times the normal type of traffic that goes through such networks. So these attacks, we suffered from these, we experienced these, and as a result of that, we prepared this presentation, and in this way of generating awareness. So after seeing all this, what can we do? There are 3 basic recommendations that I would like to share with you. The first is definitely that we have to implement efficient filtering and traffic cleansing in the perimeter networks. How do we do this? There are many different ways. This will largely depend on infrastructure and our capacities. And then we can implement prevention actions or mitigation, both cloud-based or on-premise. And finally, then this is very important, we can apply best practices and standards such as BCP 38 and BCP 84. This will help us in minimizing the denial of service attacks and to cut some of the things that might be allowing these attacks to happen. So with that, I would like to close now, and we have time for questions. How much time do we have for questions?